When your wife accidentally leaves her phone unlocked, and you see a message saying, "Tonight at the same place, my sweet," life splits in half in 1 second. I'm Tommy, a financial director of a major corporation in Aurora, Colorado. My wife Evelina is a talented makeup artist who works with local celebrities. 8 years ago we exchanged vows. 5 years ago our daughter Sophie was born. It seemed we had everything: a spacious house in a prestigious neighborhood, financial stability, plans for the future. But that September evening in 2024 changed absolutely everything. Scrolling through Instagram of my old friend Marcus, I came across a photo from the opening of a new art space in downtown Aurora. People, smiles, champagne glasses. And among them was Evelina. She stood too close to a man in an expensive suit. His hand rested on her waist too confidently, too intimately. The caption under the photo: "Wonderful evening with wonderful people." I zoomed in on the image. The same look she once gave me. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel the pulse in my temples. "Honey, are you feeling all right?" Evelina entered the living room with a cup of tea. "Yes, just tired," I replied, quickly locking my phone. The next morning, while she was taking a shower, I took her phone. I knew the unlock code, Sophie's birth date. My heart was pounding, my hands were trembling. I opened Telegram. The correspondence with the contact P burned me from the inside. "Yesterday was incredible. You're so beautiful. Can't wait for our next meeting, Patrick." Patrick. So that's his name. I scrolled through the message history. Months of correspondence, photos, meeting plans. Everything inside me collapsed. But I had to stay cold-blooded. A financial director always thinks strategically. I went into her Telegram settings and sent myself her real-time geolocation, then deleted this message from her chat. Now I could track her every move. "Honey, I'm working late today," Evelina said at breakfast, kissing me on the cheek. "Wedding makeup, you know how it is." "Of course, darling. Good luck," I smiled. In the evening, I watched on my phone as the blue dot on the map moved not to the beauty salon, but to the Aurora Crown, the most expensive restaurant in the city. A place where businessmen celebrate million-dollar contracts, and where one evening can cost as much as an average person's monthly salary. I didn't go there. Not yet. First, I needed to find out more. The next day I hired a private detective, Richard Cole, a former police officer with an impeccable reputation. I showed him a photo of Patrick from Instagram and told him what I knew. "Give me a week," Richard said. "I'll find out everything about this man and about your wife." The week seemed like an eternity. I pretended everything was fine. I smiled at Evelina, played with Sophie, fed our golden retriever Charlie. But inside me a storm was raging. When Richard finally called, his voice was serious. "Tommy, we need to meet. This is more than just cheating." In his office, he laid out a folder of documents and photos in front of me. Patrick Morrison, 42 years old, owner of a chain of fitness clubs in Colorado. That's where your wife met him 6 months ago. But there's something else. Richard pulled out another pile of photos. She's not just seeing him. In the last 6 months, there have been 3 more men. I went cold. 3 more? A businessman from Denver, a car dealership owner, even a married doctor from the local hospital, Richard listed. All wealthy, all married. And here's what's most interesting. He pulled out bank statements. Your wife received gifts from them. Money was transferred to a separate account that you probably don't know about. I looked through the documents. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's not all, Richard leaned forward. 2 months ago, she opened an account in the Cayman Islands. I have reason to believe she's planning to disappear with this money. The blood in my veins turned to ice. And one last thing, the detective added. Last week she consulted with a divorce attorney. She's going to file for divorce and take half of your property plus alimony. That evening I sat in my office looking at photos of a happy family on the wall. Everything was a lie. Our life, our smiles, our plans. But if she wants to play games, I'll show her how a professional plays. The next 2 weeks I worked harder than ever. But not on reports for the corporation. I was transferring our joint assets. The estate was registered to both of us, but a significant part of the money was in joint accounts. I began quietly transferring them through complex financial instruments to offshore accounts inaccessible to ordinary investigation. My knowledge as a financial director finally came in handy for personal matters. I also hired the best divorce attorney in Colorado, Sarah Johnson. I showed her all the evidence collected by Richard. You have an ironclad case, she said. Marital infidelity, concealment of assets, preparation for financial fraud. The court will be on your side. But I wanted more. I wanted her to feel the same thing I felt. Betrayal. Pain. The collapse of everything she believed in. Another Friday evening. Evelina was going to work again. "Honey, don't wait for me, I'll be back late," she said. "Okay, darling. I'll take Sophie to my mom's for the night. Charlie will go with us too." "You can rest," I smiled. Relief flashed in her eyes. Of course. An empty house is the perfect alibi. I took my daughter to my mother's, but I came back home myself. I turned on the geolocation on her phone. Again the Aurora crown. This time I went there. The restaurant sparkled with lights. I parked across the street and waited. An hour later they came out. Evelina and Patrick, holding hands, laughing. She was wearing the dress I gave her for our anniversary. They got into his black Porsche and drove off. I followed them. They stopped at an expensive hotel downtown. They went inside. I sat in the car, gripping the steering wheel. It's time. The next morning I met Evelina at home with a smile. "How was work?" "Tiring but productive." She didn't look me in the eyes. "Great. By the way, we have guests tonight. My business partners with their wives are coming. You know how important these connections are." "Of course, honey. I'll organize everything." In the evening our house was full of people. But among the guests was one special couple, Richard with his wife. Evelina didn't know who he really was. When everyone gathered in the living room with glasses of wine, I tapped a spoon on the glass. "Thank you all for coming. Tonight is a special evening. I want to make an important announcement." Evelina looked at me with curiosity. "Lately I've been thinking a lot about our life, about trust, about values. And I realized it's time to change some things." I pulled an envelope from my pocket. "Evelina, this is for you." She was confused but took the envelope. She opened it. Inside were divorce papers and photos, her with Patrick, with other men, bank statements. Evelina's face turned white as chalk. "Tommy, what is this?" "This is the truth, darling. Did you think I wouldn't find out? 6 months of affairs for men, hidden accounts. You were planning to take everything and leave, right?" The silence in the room was deafening. "But you know what? I beat you to it. All our joint assets are already in a safe place. We'll divide this house, but you won't see the money. And these photos? Copies are already with my lawyer." "You can't." Her voice trembled. "I can. And you know what's funniest? Your Patrick is married. His wife now knows everything too. I personally gave her the evidence. She's filing for divorce and will take all his business. They have an ironclad prenup." Evelina swayed. One of the guests, actually my lawyer's assistant, came up with water. "Your other friends also got surprises. The doctor's wife has already filed papers. The businessman from Denver lost a contract with our corporation. I personally took care of that. And the car dealership owner, his wife turned out to be my client. Interesting coincidences, right?" I paused, letting her realize the scale. "You wanted to play a game with me? I just played better. This is called nuclear revenge, if you've heard that term. You didn't just lose me. You lost everyone. But let me back up and tell you more about how I discovered everything and what happened in between. You see, that first night when I saw the Instagram photo, I couldn't sleep. I lay next to Evelina, this woman I had loved for 8 years, and I didn't recognize her. Every breath she took felt like a betrayal. Every peaceful expression on her sleeping face seemed like a mask hiding something sinister. The next few days were torture. I watched her every move, analyzed every word. When she said she was going to the gym, was she really meeting Patrick? When she claimed she had a client consultation, was she with one of the other men? I started noticing things I'd ignored before. New lingerie hidden in the back of her drawer. Receipts from restaurants I'd never been to with her. A second phone charger in her car. Why would she need that unless she had a second phone? The morning I accessed her telegram, I spent 3 hours reading through everything. It wasn't just the affair that destroyed me. It was the casual way she talked about me. "Tommy's working late again," she wrote to Patrick. "He's so focused on his career he doesn't notice anything. It's perfect." To another man, she wrote, "My husband thinks I'm at a makeup seminar in Denver. We have the whole weekend." There were photos too. Photos I wish I could unsee. Her in hotel rooms, at restaurants, on weekend trips I thought she was taking alone for work. In every photo, she looked happy. Happier than she'd looked with me in years. But what really broke me was a message from 3 months ago. Patrick had written, "Do you love him?" And Evelina replied, "I don't think I ever did." It was comfortable, secure. But love? No. Not the way I feel when I'm with you. I sat in my office that day, staring at those words until they blurred. Our wedding day. The birth of Sophie. Every anniversary, every I love you. Were they all lies? Or had something changed? Had I changed? Had I been so focused on climbing the corporate ladder that I'd lost my wife without even noticing? But then I read further. I saw the messages about money. He'll never notice, she wrote to one of her lovers. Tommy's so trusting. I've been moving money to my account for months. By the time he realizes, I'll be gone. To Patrick, just a few more months. Then I'll file for divorce, take half of everything, and we can finally be together. That's when the sadness turned to something else. Something cold and calculated. She wasn't just cheating. She was planning to destroy me financially, take my daughter, and disappear with another man. This wasn't a moment of weakness or a midlife crisis. This was premeditated, systematic betrayal. When I met with Richard, the detective, I laid out everything I knew. He nodded as I spoke, taking notes. I've seen cases like this, he said, but usually not this organized. Your wife is smart. She's been planning this for a long time. Can you find out everything? I asked. Every man, every meeting, every dollar? Give me time, Richard said. And Tommy, prepare yourself. What I find might be worse than what you already know. He was right. Over the next week, Richard's reports came in. Patrick Morrison wasn't just any businessman. He was known in Aurora for his charm and his affairs. Richard found 3 other women he'd been involved with, all married, all wealthy. Patrick had a pattern: meet women at his gyms, seduce them, extract money and gifts, then move on. Your wife isn't special to him, Richard said. She's a mark. He's done this before. The other men in Evelina's life had similar stories. The doctor had been disciplined twice for inappropriate relationships with patients. The Denver businessman was under investigation for fraud. The car dealership owner was in debt, likely taking money from Evelina to keep his business afloat. She's not having affairs, Richard said. She's running a scheme. She takes money from you, gets money from them, and funnels it all offshore. This is financial infidelity on a massive scale. That's when I knew I had to act decisively. This wasn't about winning her back or salvaging our marriage. This was about protecting myself and Sophie from someone who had become a stranger. I met with Sarah Johnson, the divorce attorney, the next day. I brought Richard's entire file. Sarah spent 2 hours reviewing everything. Then she looked up at me, her expression grim. Tommy, this is one of the most clear-cut cases of marital fraud I've seen. But you need to be strategic. If you confront her now, she'll hide everything. She'll destroy evidence. She'll drain accounts before you can protect them. What do I do? I asked. First, secure your assets. Move money to accounts she can't access. Second, document everything. Every lie, every expense, every movement. Third, when we're ready, we hit her with everything at once. No warning. No mercy. That sounds cold, I said. Sarah leaned forward. She's been planning to do the same to you. The difference is, you're doing it to protect yourself and your daughter. She's doing it out of greed. Over the next 2 weeks, I became someone I didn't recognize. By day, I was the loving husband, the attentive father. I kissed Evelina goodbye in the mornings. I asked about her day. I complimented her hair, her makeup, her clothes. But at night, after she fell asleep, I worked. I transferred money through shell companies, offshore accounts, investment vehicles she couldn't trace. I copied every document, every email, every text message. I installed monitoring software on our home computer and tracked her every digital move. Richard continued his surveillance. He photographed Evelina with Patrick at the Aurora Crown 3 more times. He captured her meeting the Denver businessman at a hotel. He documented her visiting the doctor at his home when his wife was away. She's getting sloppy, Richard said. She thinks she's untouchable. The geolocation trick worked perfectly. By sending myself her real-time location through Telegram and deleting the message, I could track her movements without her knowing. Every late client meeting was actually a rendezvous. Every girl's night out was a lie. One night, Sophie asked me, "Daddy, why does Mommy go out so much?" I hugged her tight. "Mommy's working hard, sweetheart. She wants to give you a good life." "But I miss her," Sophie said. "She's always gone." That's when I knew I was doing the right thing. Evelina wasn't just betraying me. She was abandoning her daughter. And when the divorce was final, I would make sure Sophie stayed with me, away from someone who cared more about money and affairs than her own child. The dinner party where I exposed everything was carefully orchestrated. The guests weren't random. There were people who needed to know. Business partners who worked with Patrick. Friends who had introduced me to the doctor. Neighbors who had seen Evelina's behavior and suspected something. When I handed her that envelope, when I saw the color drain from her face, I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no anger. Just cold certainty that I had done what needed to be done. After the guests left, Evelina tried to explain. She cried, she begged, she insisted it wasn't what it looked like. "I love you," she said. "It was a mistake. I'll change." I handed her a second envelope. Inside were printouts of her messages. The ones where she said she never loved me. The ones where she planned to take everything. The ones where she laughed about how naive I was. "These are your words," I said. "Your truth. Don't insult me by lying now." She stared at the papers, her hands shaking. "How did you? It doesn't matter how. What matters is that it's over. You wanted to destroy me. Instead, you destroyed yourself." The divorce proceedings were swift. With all the evidence Sarah and I had compiled, Evelina's lawyer advised her to settle quickly. Fighting would only make things worse and cost her more in legal fees. The judge awarded me full custody of Sophie. Evelina was granted supervised visitation twice a month. The house was divided equally, but I bought out her half at a reduced price. The judge considered it fair given her hidden assets and planned fraud. As for the money, the offshore accounts I'd created were legal and documented. Evelina's Cayman Islands account? That was a different story. When Richard tipped off the IRS about unreported income and potential money laundering, federal investigators got involved. Evelina spent months answering questions, hiring expensive tax attorneys, and ultimately paying back taxes, penalties, and interest that consumed almost everything she'd hidden away. Patrick's divorce was even messier than mine. His wife, Amanda, was the daughter of a prominent Colorado lawyer. When I showed her the evidence of Patrick's affair with Evelina and his pattern of seducing married women, she didn't just file for divorce. She went nuclear. Amanda's father helped her dig into Patrick's business. They found financial irregularities, improper contracts, and evidence that Patrick had been using his gyms to meet and manipulate vulnerable women. Several other women came forward with their own stories. Patrick's reputation was destroyed. His business partners forced him out. The gym chain collapsed. When Patrick called Evelina, desperate and broke, she hung up on him. When he showed up at her apartment, she called the police. She blamed him for everything, claiming he'd manipulated her, that she was a victim too. The Denver businessman, when confronted by his wife, had a different reaction. He admitted everything, begged for forgiveness, and cut off all contact with Evelina. His wife stayed with him, but only after he agreed to therapy, financial transparency, and a post-nuptial agreement that left him with nothing if he ever strayed again. The doctor faced professional consequences. His wife reported him to the medical board. An investigation revealed not just his affair with Evelina, but improper conduct with other patients. He lost his medical license. His wife took everything in the divorce. Last I heard, he was working at an urgent care clinic in Wyoming, a shadow of his former self. The car dealership owner's story was perhaps the saddest. He'd been giving Evelina money not for love, but because she'd threatened to expose their affair to his wife. It was blackmail, plain and simple. When the truth came out, his wife left him, but she also helped him file charges against Evelina for extortion. The case is still pending, but Evelina's already spent thousands on criminal defense attorneys. As for Evelina herself, the fall was spectacular. Within 3 months, she went from a successful makeup artist with wealthy clients to a pariah. In our community, word spreads fast. Her clients dropped her. The salon where she worked let her go. She tried to start her own business, but reviews appeared online. Anonymous accounts detailing her infidelity, her schemes, the destroyed families. She moved to a small apartment on the outskirts of Aurora. Last I saw her, she was working at a chain salon in a strip mall, doing basic cuts and colors for minimum wage plus tips. Her Instagram, once full of glamorous photos and thousands of followers, was deleted. She created a new one under a different name, but it has less than 50 followers. Her visits with Sophie are painful. My daughter, who once adored her mother, now seems uncomfortable around her. Sophie doesn't understand everything that happened, but she knows enough. She knows her mother lied, that her mother hurt people, that her mother chose other things over family. Why did mommy do bad things? Sophie asked me one night. I sat her down and chose my words carefully. Sometimes adults make mistakes. Very big mistakes. Your mommy made choices that hurt a lot of people, including herself. But no matter what, she's still your mommy, and you're allowed to love her. Do you still love her? Sophie asked. I thought about that. Did I love the woman Evelina had been? Or the woman I thought she was? I love the person I thought she was, I said. But that person wasn't real. The real mommy wasn't the person I fell in love with. Sophie hugged me. I'm glad I have you, Daddy. You'll always have me, sweetheart. Always. My mother, who had been my rock through all of this, moved in with us to help with Sophie. She'd never liked Evelina much, mother's intuition, she said. Now she felt vindicated, though she was kind enough not to say, I told you so. That woman was always cold. My mother said one evening as we watched Sophie play with Charlie in the backyard. I saw it in her eyes on your wedding day. She looked at you like you were a prize she'd won, not a person she loved. Why didn't you say something? I asked. Would you have listened? You were in love. Or you thought you were. She was right. I wouldn't have listened. I had to discover the truth myself, painful as it was. Work became my refuge. I threw myself into my job, earning a promotion to chief financial officer within 6 months. My colleagues noticed the change in me, more focused, more driven, more ruthless in negotiations. One partner joked that my divorce had turned me into a shark. Whatever happened in your personal life, he said, it made you sharper. You see through bullshit now. You don't trust empty promises. He was right. The experience with Evelina had changed me fundamentally. I was more cautious, more analytical, more protective of what was mine. Some might call it jaded. I called it wisdom earned the hard way. Charlie, our golden retriever, seemed to understand something had changed too. He stayed closer to Sophie and me, as if he knew we needed his comfort. Dogs have that sense. He'd never been particularly affectionate with Evelina, I realized. Animals know. 6 months after my divorce was finalized, I ran into Evelina at a grocery store. She looked tired, older than her years. She was buying generic brands, clipping coupons. She saw me and froze. Tommy, she said softly. Evelina. An awkward silence stretched between us. How's Sophie? She asked. She's great. On a roll at school. She's taking piano lessons. Evelina's eyes filled with tears. I miss her so much. You should have thought about that before you decided money was more important than family. I was stupid, she whispered. I threw away everything for nothing. Patrick, those other men, they didn't care about me. They used me. And I let them because I thought. I don't know what I thought. I looked at her, this woman who had shared my bed for 8 years, who had given birth to my daughter, and I felt nothing. Not anger, not pity, not satisfaction. Just emptiness where love used to be. I hope you figure things out, I said. For Sophie's sake, if nothing else. I walked away, leaving her standing in the aisle, and I didn't look back. A month after that encounter, I received a letter from Evelina. It was long, rambling, full of apologies and explanations. She blamed her upbringing, her insecurities, her desire to feel special. She claimed she'd been depressed, that she'd made terrible decisions while not in her right mind. She ended the letter with a plea. Could we try again? Not for her, but for Sophie. A daughter needs her mother and father together. I read the letter once, then put it in a folder with all the other documents from the divorce. Then I wrote back a single paragraph. Evelina, what you did wasn't a mistake or a moment of weakness. It was a calculated, sustained betrayal that lasted months. You didn't just cheat on me, you planned to destroy me financially and take our daughter away. You hurt multiple families, broke numerous laws, and showed no remorse until you faced consequences. I forgive you for my own peace of mind, but I will never forget, and I will never give you another chance to hurt me or Sophie. Move on with your life. I have. I never heard from her again after that, except for brief texts about Sophie's visitation schedule. 2 years after the divorce, I heard through mutual acquaintances that Evelina had moved out of state. Colorado held too many bad memories, too many burned bridges. She'd gone to Arizona, where no one knew her story, where she could start fresh. I wished her well, genuinely. Not because I'd forgiven her. Forgiveness is complicated, but because holding on to anger was exhausting. She'd paid the price for her choices. She'd lost her family, her career, her reputation, her money. She'd face the consequences of her actions for the rest of her life. As for Patrick and the other men, I occasionally heard updates. Patrick's gym empire had collapsed completely. He'd filed for bankruptcy and moved in with his parents in their 60s. The doctor never got his license back and worked odd jobs in healthcare. The Denver businessman's fraud investigation led to criminal charges. He served time in federal prison. The car dealership owner's business folded. Last I heard, he was selling used cars for someone else's lot. For men, for families destroyed. And at the center of it all, a woman who thought she could have it all with no consequences. I thought about Evelina sometimes, wondered what her life was like now. But mostly I thought about how lucky I was. Lucky that I'd discovered the truth before it was too late. Lucky that I'd had the resources and the knowledge to protect myself and Sophie. Lucky that I'd found people like Richard and Sarah who reminded me that not everyone is a liar. The experience had changed me, no doubt. I was more cautious, more guarded, slower to trust. But I was also more appreciative of genuine relationships, more aware of what really mattered, more committed to being the kind of person worthy of trust. In the end, Evelina had wanted everything: a stable marriage for appearance's sake, multiple affairs for excitement, hidden money for security, and an exit strategy that left her financially set. Instead, she got nothing. She lost her husband, her daughter's respect, her lovers, her money, her career, and her reputation. I'd wanted only one thing: the truth. And in getting it, I'd lost a wife but gained wisdom, lost a marriage but kept my integrity, lost the life I thought I had but built a better one from the ashes. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But this wasn't revenge. This was justice. This was protection. This was a father making sure his daughter didn't grow up thinking her mother's behavior was acceptable. And if, in the process of protecting myself and Sophie, I'd dismantled the web of lies and affairs that Evelina had built, if I'd ensured that every person involved faced consequences for their actions, if I'd shown that betrayal has a price, well, that wasn't revenge. That was just truth coming to light. The truth always does, eventually. Thank you for watching the video to the end. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. A playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to is now displayed on the screen. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.